I'm Kelsey Litchfield, and this is the Field Advisor Podcast, where I talk with local experts to unpack the latest agronomy information and research, giving you the knowledge to make informed decisions out in the field. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Field Advisor Podcast. I'm Kelsey Litchfield. Thanks for listening in this morning. Southern Illinois is a hot topic of concern this spring, and I have Kelly Robertson, who lives in Benton, Illinois, and owner of Precision Crop Services on the podcast today. And Kelly, before I get to you, I know you probably know this, but just to give the audience some context, I want to share how much rainfall Southern Illinois has received this spring. So in April, they had over 15 inches of rainfall and 6 to 10 inches of that rain in just 4 days, so causing some major flash flooding, major flooding on many streams and rivers that are in Southern Illinois. May brought another 8 inches to places in Southern Illinois. And this is all from Trent Ford, the Illinois State climatologist. I was looking through his website yesterday, and he said overall the climatological spring precipitation in Southern Illinois was about 20 inches. So, and some spots were 2 to 8 inches wetter than normal. So just to say, Kelly, you got a ton of rainfall and things aren't looking so hot. So give us a quick update. Our farmers, we're recording this June 18th. Were farmers able to get in the field, or are there some that still aren't? And you said that rainfall was off. So give us a context into what's it been like.
I've got customers. So for rainfalls from April until yesterday, I've got customers that are approaching 40 inches of rain.
Wow.
We had 4 10 yesterday in some places down here. In the month of June, I've got customers that have had 10 to 12 inches already. Six of that, 7 of that came on June 3rd, 4th, 5th. So I mean, it's just it's a swamp, and it smells like a swamp most places. But it's highly variable. So from a planning perspective, I've been asked many times through April and May and into June where we're at with planning, and it's, I could sit here today and say we're maybe 75% planted, but that's misleading because there are places that missed some of the bigger rains that may be 100% planted, and there's places that aren't even 40% planted. So it just depends where you're at, and it can change within a 2 to 3 mile radius of where you're at very quickly. So
could you give some context to, like, name some cities that you said got the rainfall or didn't, just to give some context? Because I know when we talk about Southern Illinois, that's a long range, a big region, but give us some where you're at, or over towards St. Louis area, deep Southern Illinois.
Yeah. So we'll start over towards St. Louis. So the Belleville area, there's places south of Belleville where they've got planted, and a lot of guys are at 100%. You go north of Belleville, there's places where they may be 40-50% planted. Franklin County, Benton, right on Interstate 57. I would venture to guess that we're not 50% planted. And that's even misleading because the 50% that planted, 50 to 70% of that never came up. So Harrisburg area, Ridgeway, Shawneetown, those areas. Harrisburg, not as much rain early, a lot more rain later, so they were able to get it earlier and get some stuff planted, and it's up. But Vienna, down that way, a lot of rain. You go to Carmi, that's very interesting. You kind of go east of Carmi, not as much rain as the west side of Carmi, by a third. So it's just, like I said, it's just where you're at and how quickly it changes because the way the rain patterns have been, it's just training rain. So if you're under the train, it rains, a lot all day, and if you're on the fringes of where that band comes through, you don't get very much.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen on the weather network that a lot of my customers participate in. I've seen 3-inch variations from one farm to the other in the same county on a rain event. So
Wow.
that tells you, yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of conversation on prevent plant, and I believe they have till June 20th. Is that correct?
So corn was June the 5th.
Okay.
And we had a big, so the 30th, 31st of May, guys began to get back into the field. Some guys for the very first time got in the field. And this is another source of frustration is National Weather Service is just absolutely, and the weather apps and all of them, it's just not National Weather Service, are just blowing the forecast completely. They were showing a 5-day run of dry weather, which changed to a 20%, 25% chance of scattered showers on Wednesday morning. And then by Wednesday afternoon, we were at 100% chance of rain, and most people got 3 to 5 inches of rain. So it went from a chance of a quarter of an inch to, that quickly. And so I know guys that planted basically 24 hours a day for 3 days trying to get stuff in. One customer, they planted over 2,000 acres in less than 36 hours, and I don't think any of it's. I think it's all going to be failed.
Why is that?
It never came up.
Mm.
The ground is so saturated and soured. To give you an idea, last Thursday, so a week ago, we went and pulled some soil samples. In the first field that I pulled soil samples in, I kept looking around and trying to figure out where the hog barn was at. And,
is that the blue mud you were talking about
yes,
online?
Yes. Yeah. And so just kept trying to figure out where the hog barn was at. And when I got back in the truck, I could smell, basically hog crap on my hands. Where I'd knelt down to dig in seeds, it was looking for, germination and whatnot. It was on my clothes. The soil bags reeked. And then when I parked the ATV in the shed and opened the shed up the next morning, my whole shed smelled like it'd been run through hog manure. So this ground is just sour. It's anaerobic. There's just no life in it right now. It's just, and even the ground that's been planted. So to give you an idea, go back a week, 10 days ago, that June, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, guys were working ground. And it was heavy. It was wet. The top inch or so may have worked good, but underneath it, it's just pure mud. And we're pulling water up on a 6-inch probe most of the time on Thursday. So so the ground, so as soon as we got that big rain, that ground just sealed over. And I looked at many acres of corn that never even swelled. It's just mush.
So now what's your recommendation to farmers if they obviously if you didn't get anything in, there's really nothing, but walk us through some of these decisions farmers are having to make now in Southern Illinois.
Well, we've got an agronomic mess, we've got an economic mess, and we've got a mental health mess right now. And the agronomic mess is probably the least of my worries from that standpoint. So, the economic mess is that we've got crop or farmers in many different stages of where they're at. So they could have crop that's planted that and emerged and up that either, like, let's talk about corn. So they've got corn that's planted, it came up, they got it in sometime in late April, early May. That corn, probably, if it has nitrogen on it, we've probably lost a significant amount of that nitrogen because we've been so wet, because we've been flooded. It has no root system, so it's not reaching any nitrogen. There's a lot, and when I say a lot, I don't even know how to say it right. There are lots and lots of acres that have no herbicide on them because you just can't get across the fields. And so we've got water hemp and mare's tail and grass in the corn. There's bean fields. You can't see the beans for the weeds. So we've got that going on. Then you've got various stages of, or not stages, but you've got various conditions of drowned out spots in a lot of fields. And then as you move kind of closer to where we are now in time, we start running into fields that had pre-plant anhydrous on them from back in March that either are still not planted or just got planted. You've got herbicide on fields where you have nothing growing. So guys were trying to spray and do everything at one time. So we're on this. We've got this whole thing strung out where we've got fields that are planted in various conditions. We've got fields that have been planted that have not emerged, and then we've got other fields that have never got planted but have some type of input put on them. And so, you know, so we've got money spent on fields that are not, you know, that have no yield potential essentially. And so as guys are calling and asking what to do, you know, I mean, the biggest conversation is sitting down with the crop insurance agent and going through your coverage and what your options are. And so it may be to prevented plant at this point. I mean, we're not getting in the field. You know, we had 3 or 4 tenths in spots yesterday. We're in a category 3 for severe weather today. The forecast, I think, is for half an inch of rain, which is kind of laughable because half inch of rain anymore means 3 inches. So, and then we're clear essentially then until Sunday, where we've got more rain forecast. So we're not getting back in the field before the 20th. And I'll be honest, I don't think we'll get back in the field before the 1st of July in a lot of places. And even then, at that point, most guys will probably, based on their crop insurance options, probably throw in the towel if they haven't already.
Mm-hmm.
So
is that what you're hearing from farmers? They're pretty discouraged or just adapting the best that they can?
Oh, they're as farmers and an agronomist, it's in our DNA to grow a crop. It's in our DNA to plant a crop. It's in our, I mean, that's what we do. That's what we strive to do. We always strive to grow the best crops, make higher yields than we did last year, and we want beautiful looking crops. So, you know, quitting is not an option, but it's a reality. And that's where the mental stress is coming in, guys. I mean, they keep thinking there's one more thing they can do. You know, we've had soybeans planted with a drone. I've seen that happening. I've seen soybeans replanted with a drone because it didn't work. You know, guys running across the field with just their toolbar, anhydrous bar, applicator bar, just trying to air the ground out. You know, multiple videos on Facebook of sprayers stuck. Tractor stuck, planter stuck, multiple videos on Facebook of guys where the Traco and the dozer trying to pull the other implement out is stuck. So, I mean, that just tells you, I mean, how desperate a lot of guys are to try to plant a crop. And in some instances, depending upon what your crop insurance coverage is, what you bought, what your buy-ups were, and then depending upon what your rental agreements are. I talked with one of my customers last week, and they basically will plant beans until the 15th of July or the 1st of August because they have landlords that don't buy crop insurance.
Hmm.
So they're going to plant beans because they have to. Now the farms where they have landlords that have crop insurance, they're talking with landlords to see what they want to do, what their options are with crop insurance. But there will be fields that will be planted regardless. Because landlords on their share don't buy crop insurance. So, and we went through that in 2012. I remember a lot of guys in 2012 that they insured their share, and landlord didn't insure their share, and they ended up losing farms because the landlords felt they were entitled to some of that crop insurance, even though they didn't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I want to say you are correct to say it's a mess, but it's more than what you can put into words.
Oh,
And I saw you posted online. I've never seen a spring like this, and that's not an over exaggeration either until you've been down there and seen what is going on.
oh yeah. I mean, I've farmed. I quit farming in 2019. Farmed for 40 years. Been a crop consultant for 37 years now, and I mean, 92 or 93, maybe it was, or 96. I don't remember which now, but I remember we planted corn on June the 3rd. That year, got a big rain and replanted most of it June 26th. Had 60 bushel corn, didn't have crop insurance. Um, those were the good old days. Um, but since then, I don't ever remember a spring. Last year we were wet. Last year, but we were dry in April, so most guys got planted in April, and then we were wet in May into June, and then we turned off and were dry the rest of the year. That's more a normal, I'll call Southern Illinois. So dry March, April, so to speak, and then start moistening up a little bit in May, and then dry off into July and August, and then the heat and the humidity is what hurts us ultimately. But guys are just spent mentally, emotionally. I visited with several guys that just sit and cry.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
Don't know what to do. Everything as one gentleman told me, he said, it's like every time I do something, it's wrong. And so not good.
Not good. We're talking with Kelly Robertson, owner of Precision Crop Services down in Benton, Illinois, about all the rainfall Southern Illinois has received this spring. Kelly, what's your recommendation as an agronomist if they don't get anything into these fields? What does the rest of the summer look like? Into the fall, what are you telling them?
So again, you need a legal pad to graph this out, because depending upon what you have or have not done will make a lot of your choices for you. So, what have you done to this point? Do you have any herbicides on? If you do, what's your plant bag dates? When did you apply them? I mean, that's another thing we're getting into right now. To go off to the side for a second, is that a lot of these fields that did get planted that don't have any herbicide on them, man, we're into that critical time where we've got a lot of rotation restrictions. So a lot of the stuff that we would normally have sprayed in April and May, we can't spray now because we won't be able to plant corn next year, or we won't be able to plant beans, and we sure won't be able to plant wheat or canola. So what herbicide do you have on? Now. That's the first question. And then the second one, and this is one of the bigger considerations when guys are talking to crop insurance, is, what's my, what's my guarantee, so to speak, on crop insurance? And then, what am I going to have to do? So we're going to have weed problems all summer. So we're either going to have to do tillage or spray to keep those weeds down. We're we're going to have to do a lot of work in some of these fields to repair gullies that are cut, waterways that have blowed out. So I don't even, I haven't even, other than the herbicide situation, really haven't got to that point yet, because we can't get to that point yet.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
But there's fallow syndrome that we have to worry about. I mean, we've experienced fallow syndrome in the river bottoms before. So, I mean, we need something growing on it. You just can't continually disc it all summer. And you can't go in there and, obviously spray it all summer either way. So, I mean, those are costs that are associated with that. And so
Yeah.
we're, it's a case by case basis.
Take it day by day. What you said earlier that some farmers have no choice and they're going to plant soybeans. What's your recommendation to them when it comes to soybean management, switching maturities, or what are you telling them in that direction?
Well, I think, number one, you still choose your soybean varieties based on yield potential. And there's obviously some maturities or even varieties within maturities that you would not plant late. So, I mean, it's not uncommon to see a 3.8 planted as double crops, but it's also more common to see a 4.5 to 5.0 planted as double crops. Um, we've got enough data from many years of backwater and losing soybean stands or corn stands in July and August along the river to know that once we get into July, maturity group doesn't matter. It's just a race to get it to mature before the frost. So population is probably more important or slightly more important than maturity group once we get into July. Because I mean the data that I've seen and that's been collected, basically shows you're looking at a 40 bushel bean crop until you get towards the end of July, and then frost pretty well is going to determine what your yield is. So no, I mean, yeah, later maturity, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, but farmers, my advice has been last week and all day Monday and Tuesday on the phone and visiting with guys is, you need to be talking to your seed dealer. Probably more importantly, talking to your seed agronomist to figure out if what you've got. And I'm okay. So here's another thing. A lot of guys have treated beans, seed and whatnot in their barns. They're pretty well locked into what they got. They're not going to be able to exchange those or change to something else because they're pretty well non-returnable. So, again, there's an hour discussion only to find out that it doesn't matter for some guys.
Yeah. I think about communication being so important during this time. It's as important as ever just to have good communication with your advisory team, as I know we've called it before, but now it's really important. But sometimes, you said got to throw your hands up and say, what can you do? But at least try every option, hopefully, before doing that. But sometimes it's inevitable.
Well, I think, again, we always think there's one more thing we can do. And in some cases, there's nothing, to quote a mentor of mine, when too much water is the problem, doing more of something else is not the way to fix it. We got too much water. It's the same way the other way. When not enough water is the problem, more of something else is not the way to fix it. So you just get to a point where it's like, okay, this is the cards we're dealt, and this is what we're going to play, and we're not we're not going to get any better cards right now. So just need to sit down and be still for a while and just see what happens.
You mentioned earlier some were able to get planted in. Is there a good amount of corn that's down there? I know we've been talking about soybeans, but what's the outlook on that?
Yeah. So again, I know guys that got 100% of their corn planted. They have, okay, that again, that's misleading. So I know guys that have 100% of their corn planted and maybe 10 or 20% of it was planted, let's say in the last 3 or 4 weeks sometime. And so that stand is either going to be replanted or failed probably. I also know guys that planted 100% of their corn crop June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and that's a complete fail or a complete replant. So the corn crop is I'm laughing just because it's not that it's funny. It's just ironic that I've seen several cornfields in tiled fields, and so to tell you how much water we've had, you can find the tile in the fields because the corn directly above the tile lines will be waist high, chest high, and the corn, and then it slopes down to the middle on 30-foot center. So at the middle of that 30-foot center, there's corn that's knee high and yellow as it can be. That's how much water we've had, and that's how anaerobic the soil is. That it just there's no oxygen or air in between those tile lines to suck the water out. So so the stands that are there, holes, a lot of holes in them. Yeah, I mean, I would venture to say, I've been asked this several times in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I would say we're, Corn probably is 75% planted, maybe 50% of it's okay. Um, I would say soybeans, 50% planted and maybe 20% okay. I know, again, to tell stories, one guy told me that they were 50% done on June the 3rd and only 10% of it's emerged. So corn or beans. So.
And I don't want to keep throwing more into the mix, but of that corn that got planted and it's in okay condition, is there any concern for disease now with all the rain and warmer conditions? I know this probably doesn't apply as much, but I've been seeing tar spot concerns and things like that. So, like I said, I don't want to throw more into this,
Oh,
but what's your concern now going into the next couple months with that corn?
so I guess tar spot's not even on my radar, but
Sure.
what we've got. So to feed into that right now, the wheat is ready. Our wheat crop down here is ready to cut, and because of the massive amount of water and everything we've had, it's popping out. So we're starting to see head loss just from all the rain and wind and everything we're getting in the wheat. And the next thing will be sprouted heads. But where I was going with that is that with all the rain and everything we've had striped rust pretty bad in the wheat crop. And so anyway, it we what's the word I'm looking for? So we had striped rust pretty bad in the wheat crop. We've had the delayed planting. We've had very, very wet field conditions. And if we look to history to kind of tell us what possibly is going to happen, we look back to 2016 where we had tremendous amount of striped rust and we had a tremendous amount of disease. And that's the year that we had the southern rust in the corn, where some guy sprayed 2 times and never controlled it. So I'm concerned about the disease situation in the corn. I'm tar spot, not so much right now. Maybe I should be, but I'm more concerned about the southern rust because all of this stuff is coming, coming up out of the south.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a matter of time, I think, until we see southern rust in the corn that we've got here.
Yeah, I was going to ask about wheat harvest next. So are combines able to get in the fields, or what's that whole situation besides the head loss that you were seeing?
So canola harvest has started. Most guys got a half a day in, and that is probably as critical as anything because again, thanks to our friends at the weather forecasters, gave us a window there where we were going to have 3 or 4 or 5 days of weather without rain. The canola has to be desiccated to be harvested. Rule of thumb: when you desiccate in 3 days, the combines roll regardless. We desiccated and started raining again.
Mhm.
So we've sat here a week or more with canola that's very vulnerable to wind and popping. So a lot of guys are going to push real hard to get their canola harvested. Wheat harvest has started, but again, I know 2 or 3 guys that have only ran a day or 2 at most, which is, you say, okay, well, they got started. Well, they also are, we're having to park trucks on the road. We're cutting monster ruts in the field. So double cropping just went out the window.
Mhm.
So
Haven't even gotten that far yet to think about it, but you're correct.
yeah.
That's
So
that
yeah.
it's just
So
one thing after the other.
oh
Kelly,
yeah.
I'm interested to learn how this wet season has impacted your work at your own business. And for those that don't know, Precision Crop Services do a lot of soil fertility, precision ag management. How has this affected your work and your own and your own business?
We've seen a slowdown or a cutback on the amount of soil samples we've taken, basically because of the economic situation. prior to starting this. So as we went into this spring, our acres were down a little bit. Um, we have actually been in better shape as far as our samples pulled. Last year, 1st of June, we were still struggling with several thousand acres to get sampled because we had such a wet May that we basically didn't work the whole month of May. This year, we've pushed a lot, and we got started a little earlier. So we're sitting pretty good. Most of what we've got left to sample is probably going to be prevented plant or it's wheat straw at this point, or canola residue. So we're not too bad a shape that way. A lot of guys are hesitant that normally would employ us to do things because they're not sure, where they're going to be at economically right now. Again, they're just trying to work through crop insurance. They're trying to work through different things like that. Now, having said that, from a consulting standpoint, we've been busier than ever because it's just I just call after call after call after field visit after customer visit. Guys have questions. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to a lot of those questions. As I told some folks yesterday, I said, I don't know the answers. And I said, I have called university people, university researchers, other agronomists. And I said, their comments were, we'd like to know the answer to those questions as well. And so there's a lot of questions without answers right now. And guys are looking for answers. So a lot of consulting going on that in that respect.
It's a tough situation to be in. Kelly, as we wrap up here, anything that we missed that you want to share? Or if you have any good news, we can end it on a good news, but I don't know if there's much, if any, to talk about.
Well, I think it's going to be a long summer. It's going to be an even longer fall. I suspect that there'll probably be a lot of Thanksgiving dinners served in the combine. From that standpoint, there's going to be a lot of it's going to be a tough year going into fall for not only the farmers but for retail and everybody in these small towns because not that it wasn't going to be tough anyway, but I think it could potentially be tougher because of reduced profitability or even substantially, reduced profitability from that standpoint. So, I don't know what the future holds. I think, but overall, I think, as I look back, what's happened the last 2 years and what happened this spring, especially as we got into April, there was a lot of ground, a lot of farms that changed hands in April. A lot of guys gave stuff up, rent ground and whatnot going into April. And I think as we get into fall with what we've had happen, I think this accelerates the retirement of some of our more seasoned farmers that are not going to want to burn up equity and whatnot. So I think the potential there, if a farm is in a good spot or in a not so bad spot, I think the potential for growth is going to be there this fall because I think there's going to be opportunities for some and in some areas, which means that there's going to be heartache for others in the same area. So I mean, it all could change tomorrow, but right now I'm not too optimistic.
Hopefully we can get the faucet to shut off, farmers can get it in the field, or at least give some kind of hope.
So that's the other side of this bad card that we've been dealt. When the faucet shuts off, none of this crop has a root system. So, when you the old Southern Illinois, I don't even know what the right word is. axiom or whatever is, if you plant in the mud, it's got to keep raining. Because if it doesn't keep raining, you don't have anything. And so, when it shuts off, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
We're in trouble.
So maybe now continued wet trend, but not too much, maybe in Southern Illinois. Kelly, thanks so much for giving your boots on the ground perspective. I know it's probably not the easiest thing to talk about, but I want people around the state to be aware of what's going on in Southern Illinois, because there were many great planting seasons for some, but I understand there wasn't for all. So I just wanted to share your story. And I know you talked to a lot of farmers and shared their story as well. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Field Advisor Podcast. Unbiased, independent agronomy information to keep your farm moving forward. I'm Kelsey Litchfield, your voice from the field. This podcast is funded by the Illinois Soybean Association Checkoff Program. Stay connected with Field Advisor on social media. Follow, like, and share to keep the conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe to the Field Advisor Podcast on your favorite podcast platform.